Welcome everyone to the September 2024 Tableau Public TUG. We have a full agenda, so let's get started. You've all seen their visit of the days, so we're here to have them answer the questions. Why did you do that? How did you do that? And the most important question of all, how did you make it look so good? Today our hosts are Tor Levinson and Agata Ketterick, and myself, Eric Howard. We're all proud members of the 2024 Tableau Ambassador class. We're grateful to have Tor guest hosting for us today from a galaxy far, far away, otherwise known as Norway. He is a Tableau Jedi who started using Tableau at version 7. Yeah, they used to use numbers instead of years back then. He's one of Europe's most merited Tableau trainers. He's also the leader of TUG Norway, and he just helped launch the new Data Plus Maps TUG. So check it out if you get a chance. He's a 4-time Tableau ambassador and a frequent Tableau conference presenter. Thank you for hosting today, Tor.
Thank you for having me.
Agata first discovered Tableau in 2016 and hasn't looked back. She completed every Makeover Monday challenge in 2020 and has been active in the Tableau community ever since. She has 9 visit days and has done many TUG presentations. Thanks for hosting today, Agata.
Thanks, Eric.
Our Viz of the Day authors have 2 of Tableau Public's most popular vizzes. Priya Padham's Superstore Dashboard Viz of the Day has set the standard for the modern Viz design. You'll see its design influence all over Tableau Public. Lewis Yu's 10 Hacks Viz of the Day has garnered 87,000 views in less than a year. And that's just one of his many awesome vizzes on Tableau Public. One of my favorites is his Godzilla Viz of the Day. That's actually not a Viz of the Day, is it? But anyway, before we have them, we're going to hear from Karen Mahardy tell us all about the Data Plus TV Challenge. Here's a rough timeline for today. We'll start off with Karen Mahardy, and in between Lewis and Priya, we'll have a quick swag drawing, so stick around. Karen is the Global Campaigns Senior Lead at Tableau. Karen, are you ready to tell everyone about this new Data Plus TV challenge?
I sure am.
All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over.
Okay. I really appreciate you having me here to speak today, Eric. I'm really excited to tell you guys all about Data Plus TV.
Everyone's excited about it.
Yeah. I'm sure that a lot of you guys are going to have a really great time with this particular challenge. And just to get you excited, we've got a fun little promotional video I'm going to share with you.
Coming up next on the Tableau Network.
Wish we had a Data Fan TV series? Oh, well, too bad we don't. But we do have the Data Plus TV Challenge. Just download my easy-to-follow starter guide and make a viz using TV data from IMDb. And you'll get this exclusive Data Fan Discovery Kit. So tune in to the Data Plus TV Challenge.
All right. I hope you got a little humor there. Let me get to the next slide here. So for those of you that don't know, so what is Data Plus TV and Data Plus Movies, which came right before this? It's actually a collaboration between Tableau and IMDb, who you may know is a provider of amazing entertainment data. And we created this program to help everybody learn how to see and understand their data in a really fun and easy way. Data Plus, the whole idea of Data Plus has been around for a little while. We launched Data Plus Music back in the fall of 2019. It was a much smaller program than Data Plus Movies or TV, and at the time there were 133 vizzes uploaded to Tableau Public during that time frame for that program. Data Plus Movies, 749 vizzes so far and counting. Since we launched last November, which is really, really exciting. Data Plus TV, we only launched a few weeks ago, 32 vizzes uploaded so far. I'm sure we're going to have a ton more uploaded once people start to get their hands on the data and play around with it. So many people are, you might wonder, like, well, how do I participate? I haven't done this before. You can go and visit tableau.com/community/TV. It gets this wonderful landing page off to the right where you can download the starter kit to get you all going. And you can see there are tons of other resources here on this page. Visit tableau.com/community/TV. It gets this wonderful landing page off to the right where you can download the starter kit to get you all going. And you can see there are tons of other resources here on this page. Visit tableau.com/community/TV. It's this wonderful landing page off to the right. So I'm just going to pause for a minute. Okay, I'm going to try moving forward. So you can see we got some really great inspiration vizzes on this page provided by maybe some folks that are on this call. Such amazing creativity and, just barely scratching the surface of what's available in this data set. But please, I hope you enjoy all of them dissecting what people have created to get you excited here. So the whole challenge is just create a viz, upload it to Tableau Public, and put the Data Plus TV hashtag on it. And then if you do that, you get free access to the DataFam Discovery Kit. And this is a new thing. I'm going to tell you all about that in just a minute. Just to show here, one of the things about Data Plus TV and Data Plus Movies compared to Data Plus Music is that we really tried to make it so that anyone could participate. The starter kit we have here walks people through how to create a viz step by step, so really anyone can do it. And then off to the side here is the starter dashboard. I want to give a big shout out to Dave Kelly, who's a community member. Did all of the data prep for Data Plus TV. He's been fantastic to work with and just did such a great job. I want to call your attention to some of the stats about this data set here. It's quite large. We've got 191,000 series represented here, 7.7 million titles, 1.8 million people associated with those titles, and 35 million roles. So just a ton for you to dig into there, because it really is TV from the dawn of TV time to now. So this DataFam Discovery Kit I was mentioning to you is new. It's a curation, helpful resources brought to you by the Tableau Community team. There's expert tutorials and how-to data content, hands-on virtual events, exclusive offers. We've got some really great discounts in there for you right now. One of them being quite an extensive discount on certification. So if you're not certified at Tableau yet, go and check out that certification offer that's in there. And then just other fun DataFam downloadables. This is a living repository, so we'll continually post and freshen up the resources and the content just to keep everybody engaged and learning on their Tableau journey. So this season on Data Plus TV, there's just a ton I have planned so far. I'm going to be doing some themed data subsets, again, with help from David Kelly to prep those. For upcoming holidays, we'll be doing horror for October holiday data set for the holiday season, and then rom-com for the Valentine's Day holiday. I'd love to know what other data subsets you would like to see next. So just send me your ideas on Slack. I'd love to prep some subsets for you and get them out to make it easier for you to explore the data. So just send me your ideas. In October, we're doing some LinkedIn live stream events hosted by Andy Cotgreave. These are basically Stump the Analyst live streams where Andy and a guest will take the starter dashboard and all that great IMDb data and try to answer people's TV questions live during the live stream. Lisa Trescott's doing comedies, Mark Bradburn's doing horror, and I'm missing a guest. Unfortunately, my guest that was going to help us out on the 15th had to back out for personal reasons. So if you would be interested in doing this live on the spot, live stream testing of your skills and digging into the data, you can pick a theme of your choice. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about it. And then in December, Andy's going to be doing his Chart Chat podcast. He's got Donna Strock, who's the data engineering and science manager from IMDb, and they're going to choose the best chart ever shown on TV. And Andy's got quite an amazing collection of them. And then on the 4th of December, we've got a webinar hosted by Sam Pretty from our data skills team and Christina Borga. 4 tips to build trust in your dashboards, Data Plus TV edition. So hopefully you guys might be interested in joining that as well. So lots coming up in the next the remaining of the year, and I'm sure there'll be even more after that. And so I'll just pause for a minute to answer questions.
I've been slacking. I haven't seen any questions.
I guess that means that my presentation was okay then. I was nice and clear for everyone to understand. So great. And just thank you so much. I hope you all really enjoy sharing and visiting on this data and sharing your work. I hope you find the coolest insights, and thanks again for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. See, I love David Kelly's viz that for The Simpsons, where he made himself look like Bart Simpson. That is really cool.
Yeah, it's really funny.
All right, well, thank you. We'll turn it over to Tor and Lewis and jump into the next segment. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Quick question, Karen. If you participate, do you get the Data Plus TV T-shirt?
There is not a Data Plus TV T-shirt this time. That was just something we did for Data Plus TV. So this time, if you participate, you can get access to the Data Fam Discovery Kit, which has some, as I mentioned, discounted certification, other learning, and other resources and things like that. So that's what we're giving away this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm here now to introduce Lewis, a good friend from all the way on the other side of where I'm sitting in Norway. You might know him as the host of Games Night Viz, together with Will and Tina. He is also the leader of the Singapore Tableau user group. He is currently at 2K Games, where he helps lead the data visualization team globally. You were just in Ireland, right? To learn some Tableau. Well, learn some other people some Tableau. So he builds a lot of dashboards. We'll see one quite soon. And he drives the data culture at 2K Games. He's also one of 5 mentors in the new and upcoming Tableau Buddy Sandbox initiative that Prasanth, Prem, and me have kicked off. Please check it out if you are going into the world of data and data analysis. Then this is a great program. Outside of everything else he's doing, he's a superhero dad. Probably he's written this himself, right? For 2 lovely daughters. He's a self-taught and certified barista, and been so lucky to hang out with him in person several times. I was really surprised and shocked then when he told me that he's not in his 20s. He's actually 40 years old. I wish I had your genes, Lewis. Over to you.
Thanks, Tori. Yeah, I think it's probably the Asian genes that is coming into play. But thanks for the introduction. Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm Louis. Let me just share my screen. Right. But Tori has given such a great introduction for me, so I don't have to go through all of this. But if you are interested to connect with me, you can actually scan the QR code and it brings you to a consolidated view of all the links that make sense. Let's see, where's my... Okay. So like Eric has kind of said in the start of the call, this year at Tableau Conference, I was very fortunate and honored to have my Godzilla Viz featured at the Data Plus Movies Gallery. So it's a really fun Viz that that I did back a couple of months before TC, and I wanted to kind of dive into the thematic design of it. So just a very quick view of how the Viz looks like. The flames were drawn in Figma, and the dots were created using Tristan's advanced tools. So it's the what do you call it? The bee swarm. And you can see that there's this silhouette of Godzilla and the cityscape just behind it. And I actually did something interesting where we have the second page on like the summary of the insights, and over the bottom you can see that the cityscape is now destroyed because like we've gone to the end of the Viz. So it was something that I wanted to really have a lot of fun playing with it, and I promised Eric that I'll talk about this like for a minute or two. So that's that. So apart from that, I am probably currently in my academic era. So I've kind of started this back in early this year. It's a YouTube series where I kind of interview some of the Viz of the day, which is quite similar to what we're doing here. But it's more a casual talk between friends on how they created the designs and like some fun coffee talks that I have with them. And like Tori said, I'm also one of the mentors for Prasan and Tori's Tableau Buddy Sandbox. So if you're interested, you can look for that link and apply. I think you only need to submit a Viz by the end of September using one of the Makeover Monday datasets to qualify, and then we'll choose one of the winners and announce those 18 people that we select in November. And then I also have something really exciting to kind of tease everyone a bit. Tyler's in the call with me. So we are, Games Like Viz is actually collaborating with the Tableau academic programs. So we actually curated a data set, much like how Data Plus TV and Data Plus Movie is created. So we wanted a starter kit to let everyone jump into games, because what we realized is every month when we do a challenge like this, not everyone plays the game that is themed with the challenge itself. Like, so for example, this month we had the challenge on cooking games, right? So you don't play Stardew Valley, you don't play Cooking Mama, chances are you would not feel you will not resonate with the data sets. So we wanted to have something that's more common and general, so anyone can just jump in. So it's a curated data set with a lot of fields that are especially highlighted and documented so that people can actually go through. For educators, there is a classroom version that people they can download, and it has like kind of a long document for the instructors to go through and teach the students about. So in terms of the starter kit, this is a tease of how it looks like. So I designed this to somewhat imitate a game console. So we have some basic data on your genres, the ratings, the number of video games from 1986 all the way to 23 actually, and we have like the Metacritic score, we have the user scores, as well as the average play time for players playing through the main story, clearing the side quests, as well as clearing all the trophies for completing the game entirely. So it's a data set that we scrape from various websites like Metacritic, Wikipedia, and other video games websites. So it's something of a passion project, very much like games like this. So we hope that this kind of inspires people to viz a bit more. That is fun. So this is kind of my academic era. So my topic today is also kind of academic in nature, because it's something that I created last year, because I am part of the business intelligence team for 2K Games. So over there, what I do is I lead the visual analytics team to create dashboards for all our different game titles and all. So what I realized was that there are a lot of things that I've been constantly doing over and over again for all the different dashboards that we are doing. And I figured that it would be a good way to kind of share that with the data fam. I mean, I can't share exactly the game dashboards that I built, but at least some of the tricks that I've been using would be kind of useful for everyone. So let's jump straight into it. So this is a very fun picture that I created using AI, because I was like kind of fiddling around with the potential of using AI. So the image of me, Tableau doesn't have this T-shirt for ambassadors. This is an AI image, so it was something that fun that I wanted to play around with. So let's start. Okay, so there is 10 different hacks that I'll go through. The first one is different skills. Different formats. So what I mean by different formats is if you do have a metric that you're visualizing in a chart, chances are whatever format that you have it on the label would be the same for the tooltips, right? So if you change this to show the full actual numbers, this will actually change the tooltip as well. But most of the time, we don't want to show the full, we want to show a truncated view in the labels and show the full value in the tooltip itself. So a very quick way you can actually do this is actually duplicate it. So you can actually hold down Control and just drag this to tooltip, right? And what you want to do is a quick calculation. So double click on this and just do a /1. And what this does, it returns the same exact value because it's just dividing it by 1. But now Tableau actually recognizes this as a separate metric measure. So you can go ahead and format this and just make sure that your tooltip is pointing to the new metric measure that you created. And now you can see that the label has in thousands, and the tooltip actually has the full exact value. Okay, the next one is dynamic formatting. So what I mean by dynamic formatting is when you have a parameter such as this, so I can show you how the parameter looks like. It's basically just a string parameter that switches between sales, quantity, and discount. And I actually have a metric over here that is just a if statement, right, to switch between the 3 different metric depending on the parameter value, right? But what happens is if I switch between sales and quantity, it's still fine because it's still showing numbers. Discount would not have the percentage, and sales doesn't have the $sign in front. And you can't actually assign 3 different formats to the same measure. So what I do as a hack is to create a prefix and a suffix. So the prefix is pretty straightforward. So it's just checking, same thing, the parameter. If it's sales, then I want to return a $sign. And for the suffix, if it's returning the discount, then I want to show the percentage sign. And with this tool, you can actually drag this over to the tooltip or the label you don't want it. And you can actually put this now. Let me see this label. You can put this as a label as well. And then you can have the prefix in the front of the matrix and the suffix at the back. Right. And now you can see if we switch between sales, quantity, and percentage, it actually shows up differently. Right. The third trick I have is about static titles, right? So what I mean by static titles is by default, when you create a cross tab in Tableau, you have all these titles that Tableau creates. But if you have two of the same measures. For example, you have a count of orders, and then you have a sum of orders and stuff like that. And if you want both of them to have the same title as orders, you can't actually do that because each aliases, it has to be unique, right? So if you select the aliases, you can change these to orders, but you can't actually use that for another one. So how you can actually work around that is using tags objects instead. So you can actually go ahead and drag a horizontal container. What we want to do is that we want to create the dimension exactly as how it appears. So we can have something like this, right? So you have this piece, we'll drop it inside. Let me just change the background so it's easier to see. All right. And then you can actually copy and paste objects in dashboard, but just copy C and copy V, Control C and Control V, and you can drop this inside here as well. This can be the subcategory. All right. So when you have a cross tab that is fit to entire view or entire, or width or height, the dimensions are scalable, so you can actually change the width of the dimensions, but you can see that you can't actually change the width of the individual measures, and Tableau actually automatically sets the width on a equal distribution. So you can use the same logic that Tableau does for the text label. So you can go ahead and let's see, we can create a separate container. All right, let me just drop 3 in this, just an example. So this will be sales. This will be orders. This will be returns. All right. And you can set this container to distribute evenly, and then drop this within the original container. So you have kind of like a nested view of it. And what you can do is that now we can drag this over here. All right. And how you want to manipulate this is, you can see this too is actually the dimension. So as long as you kind of resize this to the same width as the dimension, let's see, you can see that the other container actually distributes it equally. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me just quickly just drop things inside. Let's see, 1 and 2 and 3. All right, so you can see, maybe just have to resize this a little bit. All right, this actually corresponds with the column width itself. All right, so this is one way that you can go around it, and you can just simply hide all of this, right? And you can use the new headers, right? And the fun thing about this is that now you can also kind of do a separate different colors if you like, right? So you can have a bit more formatting. The fourth trick I want to go through is extended axis. What I mean by extended axis is if you have something like a sparkline, you have the KPI at the left and the sparkline at the right. If you try to put the labels at the end of the lines, most of the time it would overlap with the lines because of how Tableau actually squeezes everything together. But one way of doing it, one way of going around this is actually to extend the axis, right? So how you would extend the axis is you need to have a LD function. Let me see, axis, right? That creates a fixed calculation, right, of the order date. In this case, what we are using here. And what you want to do is just add like a couple of months to it, right? So that it will always return the maximum plus 12 months. And you do the same thing for the minimum one, which is instead of maximum, you're taking the minimum and just subtracting by 12 months. I'm using 12 months because the visualization is in months, but you can play around with a value that makes sense for you. And after you have done that, you can actually drag these two things to the detail, right? You can just change it to an exact date, right? And you can now add the reference line on the maximum. Just make sure that you hide the labels, hide the lines, and disable the calculated lines. and do the same thing for the minimum and hiding everything. And now the labels sit snugly at the end of the lines because there's a bit more padding at the side. All right, so that's that. The fifth trick I have for you guys is separate legend color. Some of you might know this already, but this was a very cool trick that I learned a couple of years back. And what this does is, if you have a cross tab and you want to color them, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can either color them by measure names, right, which gives you a color for each of the different measures, or you can color it by measure values. But the problem with coloring it by measure values, you can see the measures value would take the lowest all the way to the highest. So your percentage would be anything that is less than a 0 or very close to 0 or less than 0 even. And this will always be on the lower spectrum, and your sales will definitely be the highest. So it's not a good way of highlighting the colors. So what you can actually do is Tableau has this hidden function where you can actually right click on the measure values and use separate legends, right? So what this does is slightly better. It constrains each of the ranges for each of the measures. So now you have this range of sales that goes for the range of sales. You have the percentage for the percentage itself. But we don't really want colors for sales, profit, and quantity. We only want it for percentage, for example. So how you would do it is that you can edit the colors individually. And a cool trick I like to do here is you just set this to black, you can just set this to start and end to be 0, right? And what this does is that because anything that is 0, the black is actually used as the middle point. So anything that is more than 0 or less than 0 would be assigned black. So this is a way that you can kind of hack the colors to not show. For aggregate of the percentage, we don't want this to be a range. Most of the time we want like a solid color for negative and a solid color for positive, right? So how you would do that is use a sequential diverging palette, right? So you have red and maybe green. Not a good choice, but for example purposes. So what you do is you set this to a 2-step only, right? And just make sure that you set this to a -1 and 1. And the center point will always be 0. And what this does is anything that's above 0 to 1 would be green. Anything that's 0 to -1 or more would be red. So you have just like a 2 palette color. Right. The sixth trick that I have for you is on break lines, right? So Tableau does render break lines differently. So this is actually just a break line. So you just hit enter on your text box. Whereas for this second one, is a break line with a space, right? So you can see that for this too, Tableau actually renders the new line differently. So anything that doesn't have a text on it, space is still considered text, gets maybe rendered half the height of it. So it's not really good. You can actually also hack it with a blank Unicode, which you can easily Google. Okay, show an example. So you can do something like, Google blank Unicode. This is the first one that I always use, right? So you can just copy this and just paste this in Tableau. And this actually has the same effect with having a space with break lines. But the difference comes when you have it in the two labels, right? So you can see for here, this doesn't have any space for the tooltips. So you can see here, this is actually, sorry, not tooltips, the labels. Whereas for this one, I actually added a space just behind, just to the right of it, but Tableau doesn't render anything. But if we add a blank Unicode, you see that Tableau actually renders that space. So this is just a nice trick when I'm trying to work around having the labels placed slightly away from the shape itself. And this is probably more useful for maybe pie charts, I would say, or even bar charts and stuff like that. So use with caution, however, because this would, I think for Mac and Windows, they render Unicode differently. So you got to play around with the settings a little bit, right? Right. So the other Unicodes that you can use is actually something that I use quite often, the arrow buttons, the arrow Unicodes. So this is actually similarly to how you would do it in Excel. So you can right click and format, and anything before the semicolon would be your positive values. Anything after the semicolon would be your negative values. So you can actually, you don't have to put the arrows. You can put like kind of negative, you can put a plus sign here as well. So you can kind of play around with the formatting. So you don't have to necessarily create a prefix for each of the different values, or having a calculated field that if the value is positive, show this. If the value is negative, show this. So this is a very quick way of doing it. The next trick I have for you is scalable legends. And what I mean by this is, if you look at this piece, right, this is the default legend that Tableau creates for you. So you can actually click on this and, but the problem with this is that it doesn't stretch to fit whatever space that's given to, right? So this entire piece, right, if I adjust the height of it, maybe just put it 300, you can see that it shifts it down, but it doesn't take up the additional space for it. And if I just leave it as it is, there's this huge white space just at the bottom, and I don't really want that. I want something that kind of uses the entire space. What you could do is something very unorthodox, which I came up by myself. And what you could do is, for the subcategory, you can actually drag that as a row, right? Colors. And you can actually do a minimum 0.0, right? And drag this to the columns itself. This the other way around, right? And then you have like all these different pieces. You can change this to a square, drag this to a label, just put it at the side. You can hide the header, you can hide all of this, right? And then now you have a very scalable legend, right? And you can see from this one, right? This is a copy of it. If we set this to a shorter height, you can see that it actually resizes itself to fit whatever space that you've given to it. So this is a way that I use to work around the limitations of the legend in Tableau. Okay, and then the eighth trick I have for you is quite similar to the static titles. So you can actually copy and paste stuff. So whenever I'm building dashboards, especially, I start off with a kind of like a wireframe of the containers that I want to use for the different pages, and I keep that untouched. So if you have any worksheets, filters, or parameters in it, you can't actually copy anything. But if you have a kind of like a container with just blank objects or images, you can easily just copy this entire thing, right, and paste it, and just drop it back over here if you like, or you drop it over here. So this is a very quick way of kind of putting. So I have like usually a page with all the different layout permutations that I can think of, and then I use that page as a template to just copy and paste things. So you can see that you probably still need to edit the padding around it, but the paddings within the containers stay the same. So with kind of like a template like this, I can easily kind of just drop things inside here. I can just remove this. I can drop this into here, and it makes dashboard building a lot faster. Right, I don't have to kind of create that container from scratch and all. Right. The ninth trick that I have for you is the difference between PNG and SVG. So PNG stands for Portable Network Graphics, and SVG is Scalable Vector Graphics. The difference between both of them is that PNG is rendered upon the resolution that you save the file as. So if you save the file at 100 pixels and you try to scale it up to 400 pixels, you can see that it becomes a bit pixelated, like the graphics is not sharp anymore. Whereas for SVG is a kind of like a computer algorithm or mathematical algorithm that tells the computer how to draw the shape. So like from point A to point B, this is the length, this is the height and the width, and so on and so forth. So you can see that no matter how big or small you scale it up, it always keeps its fidelity. So it's very good for, if you have kind of images that you want to expand and contract, this is fine. And SVG does take a lot less space than PNG. It's probably like a fifth or even less than that. So it's very good for dashboards because you don't ramp up the size of the dashboard, which eats into the loading time as well. So there's one thing to take note. But if you are using, images for just like navigation buttons, like your home buttons, your back buttons, your different pages buttons, and you have it rendered like maybe 100 pixels or even less than that, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But it's just when you're scaling things up, like if you're rendering an image of 1,000 pixels times 200 pixels for an entire banner, probably PNG is not a good way to do it. All right, and the last trick I have for you is how do we have all the different dimensions in the tooltips. So whenever you have a chart like this where you break down the lines or bars or whatever into the different dimensions, Tableau actually only shows you the tooltip for the dimension that you hover over, right? And there's no way around it. So how I go about it is that, again, you need to create a LD function. So what you want to do is, right, create one for furniture, right, which is basically, this is the first portion of it. So we want to return the sales when the category is furniture, right? But we want to exclude this dimension in the view itself. So I'm ignoring the dimension in the chart, but I'm still returning just the furniture, right? And I do the same thing for office, right? And the same thing for technology. And now when I have all three of them, I can just drop them into tooltips, and let me just reset it. And you would see now you have the sales, which is the one all the way at the bottom, 33.4, which is the technology that we're hovering over. But we do have all the sales for the other dimensions as well. And this is a very neat trick because it allows you to create additional complex calculations for it. So for example, I want to have a calculation that calculates, how much furniture is over the total, or how much furniture is above technology. I can now combine a calculation like this, so I can do things like my keyboard is not working, oddly enough. Let me see. Whoops, did something hang on me? Okay. Anyway, let me just give me 1 minute. Whoops. Sorry,
at least it's not a blue screen, at least, so that's something.
Well, at least not a blue screen. Yes, you're right.
And we need to talk about your background there, sir, with the unorganized files, but that's for another time.
Yes, I'm so sorry that you had to see that mess, because this is my work laptop. This is not my personal laptop. I assure you that my personal laptop is much better than this. So where was I? Okay, so this one, right? So how you would do it is that you can do like a furniture sales divided by technology, for example, right? Oops. So you can have like furniture over technology. Okay. And then furniture. Change this to a percentage, right? And drag this over the tooltip, reset it, just bump up the size a little bit so everyone can see. And now you can see that you have 37%, right? So you can kind of combine different calculations when you do it this way. But yeah, generally these are the 10 most common tricks that I use in my dashboard building. So hopefully this is useful for everyone. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, let's see. I don't see anything in the Q&A, but in the chat there's been some comments. Of course, all the thank you and great tips. I linked to the dashboard that's on public, so people can download as well. There was a question about this, or a comment on the Tableau header hack that works well. But since for Mohammed here, we're relying on users downloading the report via cross tabs. Is there a better alternative? Because when you hide a header, it gets excluded in the exported file. But since you were busy, Lewis, then Adrian and myself answered that one, the trick where you just have a duplicate sheet that you hide, and you can add this export button that you can use as well. And then let's see, there was a for the SVG, since Tableau doesn't support those for custom shapes. So I guess that's more of a comment though. But I know that you can convert SVGs to PNG, but then I guess you're back to the same problem, right? Yeah. And then
So
Dennis,
on the
yes.
downloading part, I just want to make one point. So what I usually do. Let me just share my screen again. Oops, again, you see my, what we do is that we have, you guys are giving me, yeah, you guys are not letting me off for that. But anyways, I do create a separate data source and have kind of like a cross step that I built there. So for example, probably like this one. So this could be a separate cross step. Let me just duplicate this as an example. And what you want to do is have the names of the worksheet with a dot in front. So it could be something like download this or something, right? And have this put somewhere here. So you can actually put stuff outside of the canvas. So this is 1000 by 800. So if you publish this would show. But something cool you can do is that you can actually put this just outside of canvas. So when you publish, it doesn't show it on the server or the cloud or whatever, but it still sits at the side. And you have a download button, because this is the worksheet has a dot in front, it would show up as the very first one when you go. I mean, there'll probably be like a lot other charts and tables and whatnot in the list itself, but at least this would show up at the very top. So it makes it easier for the users to download it quickly.
Yeah, that's a cool tip as well, because when you have the download functionality, you can then pick, especially if you have multiple sheets, you can select which one you would like to download, which is fairly new, or like 2-3 years old. Before that, it was really messy when you did this downloading bit as well. And if you're doing embedded Tableau as well, then that's a whole nother chapter. So let's not get into that today. I think the most commons is it's in your desktop, the background basically. I mean, everybody loves your tricks. They're going to start using it, but that background, sir, you need help. You need help.
I'll go down in history for that.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, Mark says this organization has been shown to be signs of intelligence, but I guess that's something he just invented because he has the same kind of background on his desktop.
Thank you, Mark, for that.
I'll be sure to tell my wife that. She asked me to clean up again. All right, well, thank you. Lewis, that was pretty awesome. Let's do a quick swag drawing, and then we can get on to having Priya do her visit of the day. So the winner of the swag, if you will email tableau.public.tug@gmail.com, we will get all the information we need from you to get you your swag. So here we go. Click quick to spin. And Dipali Kank, did I get that right? I hope so. So great. Again, email tableau.public.tug@gmail.com and we will get you your swag. But next up, we have well, I can't get the screen to go, so I'm just going to stop sharing. We have Agata and Priya. So take it over and
Hey everyone. So I'm super excited to introduce Priya. She is a 2-time Tableau visionary, 4-time Tableau Public Ambassador, and a data visualization engineer at Expedia Group. She has been an active community member since 2020, and she loves experimenting with design and visualizing data about her interests, such as her favorite music and movies. With a newfound passion for public speaking, she loves to teach the community about data visualization, particularly dashboard design. And the data fam is so inspiring and full of incredible people. She loves connecting with members all over the world who share a passion for data. Priya and I started posting to Tableau Public around the same time, so I've been a fan from the early days, and I'm so excited that she's here today to share her Superstore Dashboard. I will turn it over to you, Priya.
Thank you so much, and I'm a big fan of you too. Just have to say that. I'll quickly share my screen. And thank you so much for the introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to finally speak at the Tableau Public TUG, so very exciting. But I think most of my kind of main points about me were covered there, but I wanted to share some very kind of quick facts about myself. So I love Radiohead, and it's my all-time favorite band ever. So if there's any Radiohead fans out there, let me know. I also have a huge collection of t-shirts, from band t-shirts to musicals and shows that I've been to, movies and TV shows, and most importantly, Tableau and data. Can't forget that. I have a lot. I have too many of those. I probably have over 70 t-shirts by now, and I'm running out of space rapidly, so I need to sort that out. But linking to the previous fact, I love musicals and I love theatre. And so far this year, I've been to 4. I've seen Edward Scissorhands, Stranger Things, Spirited Away, and Shrek the Musical, which was very fun. And I already have loads of plans to see many, many more later in the year, and I can't wait. So that's a little bit about me. So let's go ahead and jump into the agenda. So to start off with, I wanted to share a very brief history of my data viz journey and kind of what led me to creating the viz that I'll be talking about today. Then I'll share some of my inspirations for my viz, including vizzes from my favorite authors. After that, I'll jump into the viz itself and I'll talk about the design process and why I designed it the way I did. And we'll also go behind the scenes and I'll show you some of the very early stages of the viz design and the background that I created in Figma. And I also wanted to delve into Tableau Desktop and show you how I created some of the interactivity that I tend to get questions about quite often. So with all that being said, let's get into it. So when I first started using Tableau around 4.5 years ago now, I loved creating infographic visualizations. And I have some examples on the screen now of some vizzes that I created over the last few years. And you'll notice that these vizzes are long form, meaning as you scroll down the page, the story slowly reveals itself to you, just like turning the pages of a book. And that's a big reason why I loved creating vizzes in this format. And I also remember that this was a time where I was really trying to kind of hone in on my own personal style. And I was using tools such as Figma to help elevate my dashboards. And through creating all of these pieces of work, that made me fall in love with the infographic style visualizations. So from there, I continued to experiment with different design styles, and I eventually created my very first business dashboards. But I remember thinking to myself that I was applying very similar design techniques to these business dashboards that I was doing with my infographic style visualizations. But all of these business dashboards were built solely with Tableau and no other tools. So I wanted to give myself a challenge. Now, just to set the scene, I made this viz back in December 2022, which feels like a long time ago now. But the Christmas holidays were approaching quickly, so I gave myself the task to create a modern business dashboard. And I could use tools such as Figma to help me do this. And the challenge was that I had a week to do it before my Christmas holidays started because I didn't want to bring my laptop with me. I just wanted to make my viz and then, relax. And then after that week was up, I had to post it on my Tableau Public profile and social media, regardless of the end result, which, might I add, was a very painful thought for a perfectionist such as myself to think that I might have to publish an unfinished viz. But the challenge was accepted, the pressure was on, and the brainstorming commenced. Now, I also wanted to show you some of my inspirations, and these are vizzes that really help to fire off ideas in my head. And these vizzes made me want to create a more modern and app-like business dashboard. So, starting with Pradeep Kumar G. Now, if you're not familiar with his work already, definitely check it out, but I'm sure everyone here knows who he is, but his business dashboards are absolutely some of my favorite vizzes ever. And two vizzes in particular are what I really took inspiration from. So you can see we have the web traffic dashboard and the spend analytics dashboard as well. So these were huge inspirations to me, so check those out for sure. Next, we have Chimdi, who again, I'm sure you all know, and I was inspired by his NYC community service request viz, and I just loved the modern interface and the design, so I definitely wanted to try this out and try and achieve this with my own viz. Next, we have Kisley Benedict. Now, I love the way Kisley does custom tables, and I had never done tables like this before, so I really kept this in mind because I wanted to try this out in my own viz, which I did, and I'll show you a bit later on. Then we have Ellen Blackburn, who again is very, very known for her amazing business dashboards. And I was inspired by the use of interactivity in this design demo dashboard, particularly the use of the toggle buttons on the left. And you'll notice, I'll talk about this in more detail later, but I featured something similar in my viz as well. Then we have Kevin Vlerlage, who, I mean, he's not very well known. You probably haven't heard of him. Just kidding. But this viz, A Little Design Makes a World of a Difference. It really does. You need to check out this viz. It's such kind of subtle techniques of how to improve the aesthetics of your viz, and I highly recommend it. It really helped me out as well. Then we have Gandes, and her vizzes are amazing. In fact, I believe some of her vizzes were featured in the most favorited vizzes of all time. So definitely check out her dashboards. But I just love how clean they are. They're so easy to understand and navigate. So I really wanted to incorporate that in my own design. And then finally, we have Ludovic, who again, I'm sure you've all heard of. I love the way he designs tables, so definitely check out his Oops to Better Tables viz. And I also love the way he designs business dashboards as well. Now, so we've set the scene now, and that's a good segue into the dashboard itself. So this is my Superstore dashboard, which was a viz of the day over a year ago now. And as of yesterday, when I took the screenshot, this viz has over 2,400 favorites and over 170K views. It still feels kind of weird saying that out loud. I still really can't believe that. But thank you very much, anyone who has favorited and seen this viz. It means so much to me. It kind of feels like it's not real. But as you can probably guess from the name of this viz, it uses the much loved Superstore dataset, which I'm sure you've all used and heard of and practiced with. Now, in terms of why I decided to choose this dataset, I mean, honestly, it's iconic. It's accessible to anyone, from experienced Tableau users to complete beginners. And I had also never created kind of a full dashboard using this dataset before. So I was just super excited to try it out and get stuck into it. So from there, let's go ahead and dig into the design process. So I thought I would start by talking about why I decided to use certain colors, fonts, chart types, and so on. And I also wanted to share a sneak peek at some of the early iterations of the dashboard as well. So starting with color, as you can see, the color theme of the viz is pretty neutral with pops of bright blue to draw the user in. And I've also listed the different hex codes that I use throughout the viz as well. So if anyone's curious, feel free to make a note of those. But something in particular I wanted to draw your attention to is the highlight color, because that's a very prominent part of this viz. And I think that's what kind of makes the viz pop. So for example, I use that highlight color to highlight the top bars in the bar charts, or as the gradient color in the map. And I also used it to indicate when something had been selected, for example, in the toggle buttons or on the left-hand side panel. So my overall goal with this viz was to keep things very minimal in order to help make certain parts of the viz stand out. So next, we have one of my personal favorite features to kind of add to any dashboard, which is negative space. And if you're not familiar with the term negative space, this is essentially any areas that have been left blank or empty around your viz, and that helps it to look less cluttered and more appealing if there's that little bit of padding around the elements. And it also helps with the overall flow and order of the viz as well. Now, as you can see, in the Superstore dashboard, there's an even amount of padding between each element, and you can clearly see that the KPIs are grouped together at the top, and then the rest of the charts are grouped together underneath. And I wanted to add that consistent kind of spacing and padding across the entire dashboard in order to make it as readable as possible for the user, and to make sure that it was visually appealing than having a very cluttered dashboard with no obvious structure or flow. Now, something else I also try to embody with this viz is less is more, because I know how easy it is to sometimes want to include everything all on one page and to try out lots of different design techniques and chart types. But again, my aim was to keep this viz easy to understand and as clutter-free as possible. So we can see that each bar chart doesn't contain any unnecessary lines except a single axis ruler to help ground those bars. I also didn't include any grid lines as well to help make it look cleaner. Text is also used sparingly, for example, in the titles of charts and any labeling. And you'll also notice that the fonts I used are consistent. So at the very top, the main heading is Roboto, and then it's Arial all across the rest of the dashboard. Now, that's really important because using too many fonts can be quite confusing to our users, and it just wouldn't mesh well together. So that's the kind of general gist of what I was going for when it came to the design of the viz. But I thought it might be interesting to kind of go behind the scenes and take a look at some early screenshots of when I was developing this viz. And something I like to do, and I don't know if any of you do the same thing, but I like to frequently download an image of my dashboard at regular intervals so I can kind of take a look and examine it from afar and see what's working and what isn't. And it just really helps me to get a good overview of the kind of design of the viz and allows me to see what's standing out that shouldn't be standing out and so on. So I actually took lots and lots of screenshots during the different stages of the design process. So starting with stage 1, as you can see, this is where I was kind of just mapping out where I wanted everything to go. So the orange container you see on the left-hand side is where I wanted the kind of left-hand side panel to be. And then I have blue containers kind of in the main body of the dashboard, and that's where the charts would be. And I was just kind of figuring out my overall layout at this stage. Now on stage 2, this is when I started to actually create my charts and add them onto the dashboard. And you can see the KPIs are slowly coming together, and the charts really aren't formatted at all at this stage, and they really are just placeholders. I haven't really made them look pretty at all. I just wanted to get them on the view so I could start designing eventually. Now for stage 3, this is where I started to format the viz to make it look a bit prettier. So it was still very early stages, but you can see it's starting to look more like the final product now. Now by stage 4, this is where it's really starting to kind of come together, and this is where I was just kind of tweaking and adding in the last bits of the main dashboard. And you can also see the metric toggle buttons appear in the second image as well. And then finally, we have stage 5, and I would say this is kind of the penultimate stage before the viz was complete. And you can see I have now incorporated a Figma background image as well, and I started to create the left-hand side panel, and the background of the viz has also changed too. So that takes us on to the finished product. And as you can see, especially towards the end, the changes that I made were quite subtle, and I like to kind of tweak and change things constantly when creating a viz until it feels just right. Now, it's really hard to explain when I know it feels just right, because honestly, I could look at this viz and I still want to change things. But if you know what I mean, it's kind of like it gets to the point where you just think, okay, this is as good as I can get it for now. I'm just going to kind of leave it. So that's kind of where I finish this off. So leading on from that, I wanted to show you a sneak peek of the kind of Figma background that I used in this viz, but funnily enough, there really isn't much to it at all, and I ended up creating a pretty basic background image using Figma, and honestly, everything else you see on the dashboard is basically all Tableau or icons from a website that I will be talking about a little bit later on. So stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead now and jump into Figma. Now, you may be surprised how little I actually created in Figma, but I'll show you. So I actually made 2 background images, so one for the kind of main dashboard and the other for the order details. But as you can see, I really didn't do much in Figma after all. So if anyone's curious, for the side panel, I did a drop shadow. If anyone wants to make a note of the configuration for that, I'll leave that there so you can take a screenshot. But I essentially just added a shape, which would be my background for the left-hand side panel. And I also added in the overview dashboard title at the top. And I also added this here, which is where the date is displayed to show the user what is currently being shown on the view. So honestly, that's probably the extent of this, of what I did in Figma. And then the order details is even more basic. So it's funny that I kind of set this challenge to create a modern dashboard and use Figma, but it ended up being Tableau in itself that made it look modern and kind of allowed me to achieve that. So I was expecting to do more in Figma, honestly, but I'll show you now what actually gave the viz its modern and aesthetic feel. So if I jump back here. Now, the website I wanted to share with you is Flat Icon. Now, I don't know if any of you have used Flat Icon before, but I have used it since the beginning of my Tableau journey. Now, I know there's so many different icon websites out there, so feel free to pick whichever one suits you best. But I love Flat Icon because it has such a variety of different styles of icons, and if you become a member, you can kind of customize the color to match your viz. and so on. So this is kind of what I've stuck to for many years now. But if you were to go on my dashboard, I always include a little kind of information icon. So if you hover over that, it actually has a list of all the icons that I used in my viz. In fact, I'll quickly show you that now. So you can see here, it's basically just a sheet, and then I have all of the different kind of credits here. So I've listed my inspirations, and I've also listed all the icons I used. And that means if you're interested in the icons that I used in my viz, you can go ahead and search these authors on flat icon. And yeah, so a really important note actually, before I let you go off and use that icon, always refer to the authors that you use in your viz. It's really, really important to make sure you always give credit to anything you use in your viz that you haven't made yourself. So definitely, if you want, you can use the information icon, or you can just put it on the viz itself somewhere, but always mention and give credit to any authors you use in your viz. Just had to make sure I mentioned that. Perfect. So leading on from that, I thought we could move on now to the interactivity that I included in this viz, and then shortly I'll be jumping into Tableau Desktop to give you a closer look into how I made some of these features. So let's get into it. Now, first of all, we have the KPIs. Now, this includes metrics such as sales, profit, and so on. And I placed this at the top because these are the key areas of interest that our users want to see straight away. And the rest of the dashboard will go into more detail underneath. And each KPI card is actually made up of 3 separate sheets. So if I draw on this here, this is a sheet, this is a sheet, and this is a sheet, and I just kind of stack them all together with some containers. So containers are my best friend, that's for sure. So moving on, we also have the state drill down. Now, I wanted the dashboard to be easy to filter and for it to be very intuitive. So pretty much anywhere you click on this viz will allow you to drill down in some way. So for example, here we can see this GIF is showing that you can click on the map, and then it allows you to drill down by state. And you can also multi-select different states, and it will drill down by those states. You can even click on any of the bar charts, and it will also filter the view as well. Now, one of my favorite features is the metric toggle at the top. And I wanted the user to be able to toggle between the different metrics and to change the view based on what is selected. So along the top of the page, we have 3 buttons: sales, profit, and orders. So you can click on any of these and the entire view will change to that metric. And I'll be showing you how I created this a bit later on. And then finally, we have the order details table, which you can navigate to on the left-hand side panel. And this allows you to kind of see a more modern table that you wouldn't really see in Tableau usually. And it's definitely inspired by Ludovic and Kisley as well. And I'll be talking more about this table later on. So that was an extremely quick overview of the interactivity. Now for the fun part, I'm going to finish off this session by jumping into Tableau Desktop and show you how I created some of these features. Now, right off the bat, when I first published this viz, a question I got a lot was actually about this here. How did I make the user's name appear on the dashboard? And I also really love this little bit of personalization because it really makes the user feel like they are using an app that is designed for them. And it's just so easy to do. And really, it's just actually a very normal text box. And if I double click in it, you'll see it's just a normal text box, and you'll notice that it says full name here. So all I did was go to insert, and then you can click on username or full name. And if someone's on Tableau Public and they're signed in, it will actually display their name on your viz. It's so simple, but so effective. And it's something that I got asked about quite a lot. So if you were also wondering how I did that, there you go. Please use it in your own vizzes. I think it's a really neat trick. Perfect. So moving on to, I think, the most, I guess, intricate feature of this particular viz, and that is the metric toggles here. Now, this was inspired by Ellen Blackburn, who I mentioned earlier. So if I go ahead and open up the metric toggle sheet, so you'll notice that I have a parameter called metric swap param, and all this is it has sales, profit, and orders, and I'll be referring to this later on, but just so you have in mind, it's just a simple parameter with 3 options in it. Now, this is what I'll be using to actually toggle between sales, profit, and orders within some of my other calculations. Now, before I jump into that, I wanted to give you a very brief overview of the calculations that I use in this workbook. So, all in all, this workbook comprises of current year, previous year, and percentage change calcs. So for example, I have the sales current year calc here, which I'm sure you've all used a similar kind of calc before. And I also used, for example, percentage change calcs as well. So it's all very kind of familiar, and we've all kind of done these things before. But how did I actually incorporate the parameter metric toggle into these calculations? Well, I have a folder here called metric swap calcs. And these calcs allow us to swap the metric we want to refer to for any of our current year, previous year, and percentage change calculations. So for example, if I open up the metric swap calc current year here, you'll notice that it's a case statement, and you'll see if any of these options are selected, it will refer to the appropriate metric. So for example, if sales is selected in the parameter, then the sales current year calc will be used, and so on. Now, I use a very similar setup with a case statement for the labeling as well, because the labeling wouldn't make sense because orders has a very different format than, for example, sales and profit, which would be dollars. So if we open up the label version, you'll see I use a very similar case statement, but I basically just kind of added the formatting of how I want those particular values to be displayed in the labels, which means that it would be dynamic labeling as well. So going back to the sheet itself, you can see I have 3 sum of 1 fields at the top here on the column shelf. And I also added in some text on detail. For example, you can see on the sales sum, we can see we have sales on detail. If I click on profit, we have profit on detail, and so on. And I'll be referencing those in my parameter actions later, so stay tuned for that. And I also made some calcs to change the color of the button when it's selected. So I can actually jump into that here. So for example, when orders are selected, then I have this calc here. So very general overview of the calculations. But now I want to jump back into the dashboard and show you some of the actions. Now, I do have quite a few actions in here, but the one I want to focus on is the metric profit PA parameter action. So if I go ahead and open that up, you can see that it's being applied to the metric select sheet, which is what we were just on. And you'll notice that the target parameter is in fact the metric swap param, which has our sales, profit, and orders values. And the source field is profit. Now, what this is doing is when the user clicks on the profit button on the view, it's actually going to send profit to the parameter and then toggle the entire view to show profit. So if I go ahead and click on that button, you'll see the entire view toggles to profit. So all of that was achieved using parameters and case statements. So that's a brief overview of the kind of toggle buttons. The last piece of interactivity I wanted to talk about was the order details table. Now, this, like I mentioned, is inspired by Kisley and Ludovic. And as you can see, it's not your usual Tableau table. And I love this way of creating custom tables in Tableau. And I remember when I first saw people like Kisley and Ludovic posting these tables, I had no idea how they were doing it. And I was really confused. And when I downloaded their workbooks, I didn't understand what was going on with all of these mins and things. So I wanted to quickly go over how to set something like this up in case any of you were wondering how to do it. So I just opened up the table sheet, and like I said, you'll notice there's a lot of mins on the column shelf here. Now, each of these fields represents a column in the table. So for example, this first min one here is actually the order date and order ID, and that's what's actually displaying this here. And the next two are dual axis, and one of the fields is what I use to create the little circle here, which has the kind of colored circle and then the first three letters of the customer segment. And then also the second is all about the customer name. And if you dual axis it, it gives you more freedom to kind of adjust how it looks and to kind of group them together like that. So the really cool thing about custom tables like this is the fact that you can experiment with formatting and the sizing of things in order to get it to line up perfectly. So actually, if I quickly just show the header here, I manually adjusted this until it was just right. So for example, if I change this to, let's see, 1.2, it slowly kind of adjusts it. If I change it to 2, you can slowly see it move. So I found that having it as 1 made it look the best. So it's all about kind of tweaking and finding the best, I guess, values that will suit the purpose, because I noticed sometimes text would be cut off when I was making it. So you have to kind of adjust accordingly. So feel free to download my workbook if you're interested in kind of the setup and how I organize all of this as well. But if I quickly just hide the headers there. Another cool thing is you can make just plain numbers look a bit more interesting as well. For example, with the quantity numbers here, all I did was just add a little square behind the number, and somehow that makes it more visually appealing than having just a plain number there. And then of course, I also have the kind of complete and pending buttons here as well, which again is a dual axis. So I have one of the fields that creates the kind of outline around the button, and then the other it kind of fills it in. And I've just color coded that as well. So I highly encourage you all to try out custom tables in Tableau. And again, like I said, feel free to download this workbook and reverse engineer it, and definitely make sure you show headers, because that will show you kind of the numbers that I chose for the axis as well, and how I kind of adjusted it to fit properly. So be sure to do that, and maybe check out as well what I've included in each of the different columns. And yeah, I hope that helps. And feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions about any of the features that I mentioned today. So that's everything that I wanted to kind of discuss today. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for having me again.
Thanks so much, Priya. That was awesome. I did see some questions. Ali was wondering if you created the rounded rectangle toggles in Figma and imported them into Tableau as custom shapes, or?
Yeah, I believe I did actually. I'm trying to remember, but I think yes, I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I did it in PowerPoint. I often kind of switch between doing it in PowerPoint versus Figma. So whatever design tool you want, you can just create it, import it into your Tableau repository and use it. And then you can actually color it inside of Tableau. So as you can see, it's quite small, but I actually just made them gray when I made them, but then Tableau colors them for you when you assign a color to it. So that's a good tip there.
Nice. Dennis is wondering why you went with a mix of horizontal and vertical bar charts.
Oh, good question. So I think it was probably because of labeling. So for example, I mean, I'm trying to get into the mind of Priya 1.5 years
A
ago.
year
when
ago,
I
yeah.
made this. What was Priya thinking when she made this viz? I think I wanted to kind of change it up visually because I didn't want it to look all the same across. So for example, I wanted to make sure the labeling actually fit properly. So for here, I made sure that I had enough space to display all of these names properly. And then for these two, actually, I'll just kind of do that so you know what I'm referring to. For these two, there's only 3 options being shown, so I just wanted to display it kind of in that format because that made sense to me rather than like this, for example. And then I really wanted to experiment with this way of labeling. That's something I saw on Kevin Flurridge's design tips viz that I mentioned earlier, and I really wanted to try this out. So honestly, it was probably more like a passion project to try and experiment with different design styles just for myself. I think that's honestly what I was doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at how you did that. All right, awesome. I think that was it. I mean, there's a lot of, you should read all these comments because there's a lot of shout outs.
I haven't had a chance to look. I can't wait to see.
But I really loved it. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Eric, was there anything else you wanted to
Yeah,
say before we sign off? Or
just a little bit more. Let me share my screen again. And thank Priya for all of that. That was awesome. Next month, we have some very popular vizzes from Maureen Okonkwo and Brittany, is it Rosano? I haven't talked to her yet, so I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. But first, we're going to be kicked off with Agata and Preethi sharing the inspiration in the World Data Viz, something that they recently did for Tableau. And I'll tell you, if you want a viz of the day of your own, build a viz that is timely and topical, highlights new features, spotlights the diverse Tableau community, and includes a novel chart type or Tableau trick. It communicates a key insider story and, as we've seen today, make it visually stunning. One last tip I want to leave you with is on Tableau Public, there is this little button here. If you click on that, you can nominate a viz for the viz of the day. So build a viz and start the process by nominating yourself. And hopefully we will see you here on a future version of the Tableau Public Users Group. Thank you, everyone.
yeah, thanks everybody.
Stop sharing. Awesome. That was great.